Hello. My name is Sunny, and most of you know that. I'm the person behind this YouTube channel, and of course I use the term channel very loosely because I do not upload on any type of schedule or any type of normal YouTuber activity. I don't know. Hopefully y'all know what I'm trying to say. Excuse my voice a little bit. I was just yelling at a hockey game for a lot, so but as I'll talk about in a little bit, I kind of felt like I needed to make this video right now. Okay, so I was going to have a script with this video, and I'll explain what this video is in a moment. But just after today, just I felt like I just needed to get it done and over with. So this is gonna be hopefully mostly unedited. Like, I don't know if I'm just gonna be sitting in the silence for like 2 minutes at some point. I might edit that out. I don't know yet because I haven't filmed it yet. So bear with me, guys. Yeah, so I'm Sunny. This is my YouTube channel, Elephants Are Tasty. And that's basically me. I'm a college student in my junior year. And I don't know, like that's like the introduction of me. So first of all, why am I making this video? And then second, what is this video? So I have a few notes on here, which is why I'm looking down a lot. So why I'm making this video, like I kind of mentioned, I just feel like I need to get it out of my head. Especially after just this situation that happened today. And I will explain it a little bit later, but you'll probably think it's totally trivial and I shouldn't be making a big deal out of it, but hopefully you can kind of understand what's going on after I explain everything. So I thought I got the idea to make this video, so I needed to get it out of my head at this point because I thought of making the video. Now it's never gonna leave my head unless I actually make and upload this video. Also, hopefully, I hope this video will give me some type of closure if possible. Obviously this is not therapy and like whatever, but I hope it'll give me a little bit of closure. That's really all that's mostly what I'm looking for here. And finally, I thought, well, obviously I don't know yet because I haven't filmed this video yet again, but I thought maybe making this would also be kind of therapeutic in a way. So that's basically why I'm making this video. And I guess I should add on before I forget, I am not making this video to attack anyone. I feel like I should really mention that because I feel like some people might take it the wrong way a little bit, but I'm not making this video to attack anyone that is vaguely mentioned in this video. So what is this video? I guess we should get to that. So this video is going to basically be me talking about the very lowest point that I've experienced in my life so far, and basically how I got out of it myself by doing things myself and dealing with things myself. And now, I don't know like what I look like right now, but basically how I went from my lowest point to right now, which is, as of now, and for the past few months, I have been the happiest I've ever been in my life. So maybe this might help someone, maybe, I don't know. It'll help me, hopefully, but it's basically how I got from the lowest point in my life to pretty much one of, if not the highest points in my life. And so, I guess to go into a bit more detail about what this video is, it basically surrounds the situations and what happened, explaining how I lost pretty much all of my friends at school here at college. Sorry if there's like clicking noises. I'm fidgeting with my pen. Like I gotta do it to like just like keep myself focused and not go crazy. So yes, this is basically how I lost almost all of my friends at school. And the last thing that this video is I don't know if this sounds super cliche, but this video is like my truth. How I see these situations, what I personally experienced, how I interpret those situations, my truth in the sense of what people have told me, unless I have evidence otherwise, I'm taking them at their word. So I guess disclaimers going into this. This is how I personally see it, and if someone who I will be vaguely mentioning this, I don't know, how do I speak words? If someone who I vaguely mention in this video, someone who was even slightly involved with what happened, if they see this is not a personal attack on them. I had to get this out there. It's been kind of bothering me since I thought of the idea, which I kind of mentioned before. So yeah, in case anyone who was involved sees this is not a personal attack on you. It's just, I gotta do it, and this is how I see it, and this is how I experience things, and this is how I was treated. So, more disclaimers. I don't know the mindset or the exact thoughts of the people I'll be talking about. Obviously, I can't get into their head, and I don't know anything besides what people have told me, and obviously what I've experienced. So there could be some big details in the situation that might change my outlook, I don't know, but I'm basically going off of what I know, what people have told me, and what I've experienced. So, yeah, like I said, I don't want this to be an attack on anyone. This is only me discussing what happened to me, my feelings, etc., etc. So I guess now we'll get into the meat of the video, because you probably still don't know what the fuck this is about. In high school was like pretty good. It was a little stressful. My workload was a little stressful, but I had some really good friends in high school. And, like, I have friends back home, not here, that have been with me for a majority of my life, and I love them like super dearly. They are like super dear to me. And of course, like, I had my fair share of like romantic interactions in high school, but really, I forget the exact timeline actually. Like, I've tried to forget it, I guess, but as far as I can tell, starting junior year, I'd say, I was dating this guy who was also in marching band, and like with most new relationships, things were great at first. Like, I felt really happy, but it quickly devolved into the situation where he would emotionally manipulate and guilt me into doing things I did not want to do, primarily having sex. So basically, just the situation with him was I would go over, he would constantly complain about me not spending enough time with him. So I would go over just to get him off my back, really. And while I was there, he would be rarely interested in anything other than having sex. And, like, if I wanted to take a nap or play video games, he would oblige, but maybe for like 15 minutes, and then after that he started getting handsy, and obviously, like, you know what I'm talking about. So he coerced me and emotionally manipulated me, guilted me into having sex with him a decent amount. So there's this term on the internet called sexual coercion. So that's basically what that was, and I'll talk more about that later. And I was scared to just leave because he had a temper sometimes, and sometimes he did get a little scary, and I was scared of what he could possibly do to me if I left him. So I was just miserable for months and months until it got to the point where he broke up with me over a text message. And obviously, doing it over a text message is really shitty, but in general, but looking back on it, like, it made me so happy to be broken up with, especially over a text message, because I didn't have to experience what he was feeling, what he would physically do at the time of the breakup. And I just felt like when I read his message, I felt this huge weight lift off my shoulders. And this was getting to around finals for my senior year in high school. IB, AP exams. And I just felt so much happier, and I immediately regretted not getting out of that situation faster. You may be wondering, what the fuck does this have to do with your friends in college? But basically, it gives you a little bit of context to where I was coming into college. I was a lot happier that I was out of this situation. So this leads me to the very start of college. Literally before classes even started, it was a few days before classes started, my school was showing the first Deadpool movie, and I was going with a few just like friendly acquaintances that I had met after moving into like my freshman dorm and things like that. And so at the end of the movie, I heard some people talking behind us about YouTubers that I also liked, so I was kind of listening on their conversation. And oh boy, just like thinking about it now, it's like if I could go back and just not talk to them, like the last 2 years of my life wouldn't have been such hell. I know that sounds dramatic, but hopefully you'll understand once I explain more. So they were talking about YouTubers that I liked, so of course I turned around, wanted to make friends, and the guy right behind me was decently attractive. So we just started talking about it. And like that night, he was gonna like recommend certain videos to me and things like that, so we exchanged numbers. And that's really where this whole shit show started. Basically, within a week, he introduced me to his friends. We hung out a little bit, and we started dating within a week. So by that point, it had been only a couple of days of college, and I was already in a relationship. And looking back on it now, that is like going to be one of the biggest regrets of my life, probably. I think it was incredibly stupid to jump into a relationship when you're getting to college as a freshman and school has basically not even started. I hate myself for doing that. Anyway, so we got together, and quickly I started hanging around his friends, and like soon they became like my closest friends, not counting my friends who I have back home. So like I said earlier, at the start of any new relationship, it's probably going pretty well. And I mean, that's how it was going pretty well. Like me and him and our friends, we hung out a lot, played video games together, we would go bowling, just like do whatever. We did a lot of stuff together, eat meals. It was basically like that was my college friend group. So fairly quickly it became evident to me that the guy I was seeing was pretty interested in having sex. And when I thought about it with him, I was not excited. I think, like, obviously if you're in a sexual relationship, you should be excited and happy to have those interactions with your partner. But as, I know I say this a lot, but as I'll talk about a little bit later, I realize now that I think I like had or still have asexual tendencies, or I'm on the asexual spectrum. We'll get to that. But it just didn't make me happy for him to say like, oh, let's have sex. But the first couple of times I just did it because like I was decently happy in the relationship still. And I thought like, okay, even if I'm not super into it, it's like not that bad. Just like, whatever, it's whatever. That's what I thought. So, I mean, the relationship was still fine for most of freshman year. Like, I really, really valued my friends. We would hang out all the time, like all just grouped together. We would do stuff together, go out to dinner, go off campus, go see movies together. We would play Civ 5 until 3 in the morning on a school night. We would play group games. And I felt like I thought that I was really happy. So, I mean, looking back on that, I was pretty happy, but just as the frequency of him wanting to have sex increased, I found myself more and more unhappy, and just realizing things that would become issues in a serious relationship further down the road. For example, he was very religious, and I personally am agnostic, atheist. Really, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just not a fan of religion. Just things like that. Our personalities were fairly different. He had suffered from, and I think was still technically diagnosed with, depression. And of course he was on medication, and most of the time it was completely fine, at least outwardly to me. So, I don't know, like, as the honeymoon phase wore off, we started having a bit more arguments, obviously, and just feeling totally less happy with each other. I think that's a pretty common thing that lots of relationships go through. Like the end of the honeymoon phase, like the new excitingness wears off, and then you start to notice annoying things your partner does. That's basically what I think it is. It's getting cold in here. I'm gonna get my blanket. And some of this is super fuzzy because I've tried to forget it. Yeah, we just became less happy with each other. I really don't remember specifics at this point while I'm making this video. What I really remember was frequently being sexually coerced. And as the honeymoon phase wore off, I feel like the yellow's a little, like, distracting. As the honeymoon phase wore off, I found myself not wanting to have sex. I did not want to have sex with him. But I did it anyway because I knew if I didn't, he would just get frustrated at me because I had seen it a little bit. So, okay, I guess I do remember one thing. Valentine's Day, my freshman year, as I remember it, I did not approve anything that I'm about to explain that he did, except for the parts I'll say, like, I did go along with, if that makes any sense. I'll try to explain. He was heavily implying that he wanted to have, like, a romantic sexual night on Valentine's Day, where basically he would keep his roommate out of his room, and, like, we would have sex, whatever. As I remember it, without my knowledge at first, we had a friend group chat. He created an event in the group chat called, like, Valentine's Day in my room will be closed. Obviously telling all of our friends that he was planning to have sex with me, and this made me extremely uncomfortable. In fact, like, I half joked around by saying, oh, I'm not going to this event, because honestly it made me extremely uncomfortable. And of course all my friends, who, by the way, literally everyone else in this friend group is a guy. I had no female friends besides, like, friendly acquaintances from classes. All of my friends that I hung out with were guys. Basically all the guys were like, ooh, blah, 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 and I was like, this is extremely uncomfortable for me, but I feel like if I say that, then they're gonna be like, oh, blah, 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 like, it's fine, we're not making fun of you, whatever. And I felt like my boyfriend at the time would get annoyed if that happened. So I went there that night, and I remember me trying to delay it because I was uncomfortable. But eventually I gave in because he was like, I made this night, like, so we could do this. And so I said yes, I consented even though I did not want to. I consented verbally and physically, but mentally I did not want to. Yeah. So that's like the one thing that really sticks out my freshman year. By the end of freshman year, we were like kind of more of the rocky part of our relationship. And looking back, obviously, I know that if it had gone to that point where he wanted sex and I was very uncomfortable with this, we should have broken up. But I still, for some reason, thought I was happy. I thought he was happy. I thought breaking up would mess up the friend group. Stuff like that. So, freshman year ended, and he lived far away from me. So our plan was at some point in the summer for him to come down and visit, and we would just like have fun, do whatever. That summer, he was working at a summer camp, and I had my summer job. And we would try to call, FaceTime, Skype, whatever during that summer. And just very quickly, it became it became a chore for me. I don't know how he felt about it, but I would dread having to talk to him on the phone. I would dread having to FaceTime him because very quickly we ran out of things to talk about. Like he would talk about his summer camp and what he was doing, and I don't know why, I just found it extremely boring. I didn't know how to respond because I wasn't into those activities at all. And I just felt annoyed when he would talk about it all the time. And then also that summer, he kept delaying buying his plane ticket to come see me, and I was just trying to be helpful by telling him like, oh, you should buy a plane ticket sooner rather than later because of prices. I don't want you to pay too much, so you can get better days to fly in and out to maximize our time together. And he got very angry at me for telling him this, for me trying to be helpful. He got extremely angry at me, and I felt like shit, like most of that summer. So then he came and visited. It was during RTX, and he told me he did not want to go to RTX, but he only went because I was going. Sorry, cut out. I didn't edit. And like I tried to get off work those nights when he was visiting, but like they didn't want me to have the night off for only like a couple days, and my boyfriend at the time blamed me for that. Like he was like, why can't you get work off? Like, don't you want to spend time with me? And I tried to tell him like I literally can't, they're not letting me, but he's like, it's your fault. So he came and went. I mean, him visiting was like a pretty good time, but I found myself being more and more unhappy. So that's that part. So then sophomore year was going to start again. Let me look at my notes real quick. Oh yeah, just basically to like sum up summer, long distance was extremely bad. It was a horrible experience. I felt no attraction to him at all. I did not want to talk to him, but I was scared of doing something like breaking up over long distance, ghosting, anything like that. I was scared for myself. I was scared what he would do because he had depression. Which, by the way, when we argued, the way I remember it, he would decently, frequently, semi-frequently bring up his depression, which guilted me into not wanting to continue the argument to state my position. It led me to just giving in to whatever he wanted. So there's that. Anyway, so sophomore year came. Let's see. Okay, yeah, sophomore year came. It started out like obviously pretty decently. Like we were back together. It was a bit more happy. But it quickly like got so much worse. That's when I started to identify on the asexual spectrum. Because I found that I was not sexually attracted to him at all. Honestly, at that point, the idea of sex was kind of just like pointless to me. Like I was like, I don't need that in a relationship. I don't want to deal with that stuff. And as a woman, it's definitely more troublesome to me than it would be to a guy, potentially. So I really did some research, and I thought I was asexual, demisexual, whatever, just on the asexual spectrum. And as I'll talk about later, I still kind of identify with that, but I want to elaborate on that and not give people the wrong idea. So yeah, sophomore year quickly devolved. He would frequently get angry at me not wanting to hang out with him whenever we both had free time all the time, if that makes sense. I'm kind of introverted, and honestly, being alone helps me really recharge, like my mental energy, whatever. And he would get mad when I would say things like, I just want to be alone right now. He would get mad and guilt me into hanging out with him. Yeah. I need some water. I was screaming at that hockey game. Okay, that spilled a little bit. Where was I? Yeah, it just got bad. I remember there would be times where he was taking a class that I had already taken. So just sometimes when I would be in his room, because he asked for me to be there, if we were doing homework and like he was doing something for the class I had already taken, he wanted me to help him with it sometimes, which I have no problem with. But I feel like he really assumed I knew everything about the class. And no, I got a C+ in that class, and I hated that class, honestly. So I would attempt to help him. I would try to give him some pointers. Maybe like my pointers, he still got the question wrong. I felt like he got angry, and I honestly got frustrated with myself and a little bit with him. So I would just be like, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm gonna go continue working on what I'm working on. Maybe I'll know better like with another topic. And I feel like he constantly blamed me for not being able to help him. Like I would say, sorry, I don't know, and then I would like go try to do my work, and he'd be like, wow, you're not even helping. Like, do you even want to be here? Well, I'm just asking you for help. Why are you being such a bitch about it? That kind of stuff. Yeah. And then I'll kind of talk about some jumbled memories I have from that semester, because there's like a lot of stuff that happened. So I remember this other time where he was yet again coercing me, guilting me into having sex with him. And like partway through I started crying. Because like I just felt so incredibly shitty about myself. I was feeling so low at this point. I started crying. So we stopped having sex. He sat down, like in the corner, whatever, started looking extremely pouty, and just whenever I would try to bring up an issue I had, he would turn it and put the blame on me. He wouldn't take any responsibility for what was going on, and literally at the end of this argument/discussion, he'd be like, I think we'd both feel a lot better if we just continued having sex and until I finish. And literally, the way I remember it, for 5 to 10 minutes, I was so uncomfortable with this, but he just kept begging, so I just gave in and did it anyway. Because I just wanted him to get off my back and stop begging. So there's that. There were a few instances where We'd be like out having fun, eating dinner, whatever, with the friend group. And let me just say this, like, at this point, the friend group was fine. Pretty much all of my issues at this point were with him. We would be out with the friend group, and occasionally, I don't even want to call him boyfriend. I'm just gonna use pronouns, and hopefully y'all understand what I'm talking about. He would joke with the friend group, who, let me remind you, are all guys, kind of in a sexual nature at my expense. I believe this happened possibly 3 to 4 times. And while I was there, and I would feel very uncomfortable with it, and the first few times I would just ask them to stop, obviously with increasing tone of voice. I don't know, I'd be like, can y'all stop? And I'd be like, stop. And then I just remember the last couple times it happened, I would snap at him, honestly, and be like, fucking stop. And this would be in front of his friends, and then he would all of a sudden be so butthurt and say, like, why are you snapping at me in front of my friends? This is so embarrassing. Why are you doing this? That's so mean. And it made me feel like shit because they were making jokes at my expense that I was uncomfortable with, and I was being blamed for the negativity. So there's that I remember. It was shit like that. Sophomore year, first semester. But that's not even the end of it. That's like the first half of the semester, because eventually it got to the point where I had enough courage to tell him that I felt like I was asexual. And I remember exactly where we were walking when I told him this. It was up the stairs next to the dining hall. And I remember as we turned the corner, he was like, okay, well, I don't think it's that big a deal. Like, you can work through it. Whatever. Basically, completely just discounting how I was feeling. And he basically said something along the lines of, like, we've had sex before, you can just keep doing it. I need sex to function properly, like mental blocks and stuff like that. And just once again, I felt so downtrodden, and I felt like having the courage to tell someone my feelings, my experiences, my sexuality, like, it was just, it completely shattered any of the, like, remaining confidence I had left, honestly. And I realize this video is, like, gonna be so long now. So there's that happened. So, after that, I continued to, like, have sexual relations with him. I was very uncomfortable with performing oral, and he would just once again, like, beg me to do it, say, oh, if you do a little bit, you'll get used to it, and then you can do it a lot. So that fucking sucked. And then, here's where, like, this isn't even the worst of it. So, I don't know, I guess, well, here's another thing that happens even before what I was about to say. That semester I was taking a physics class, and I hate physics. Him and, like, a lot of my friends were physics majors, by the way. I was taking physics. I really hated it. There was a test where I felt like I did so incredibly shitty on it that I just kind of had an impulsive moment where, like, I texted the group chat saying, like, I am completely worthless, like, my grades are gonna suck, I feel like shit, maybe I shouldn't even exist, like, y'all probably wouldn't even miss me if I was gone. That's basically how low I was getting. It was almost the lowest point. Like, this is not the lowest point in my life yet. And I don't even know if anyone's still watching this video, but like I gotta do it. So that night, I hanging out with him. He bought me some food, which like obviously that was super nice, and I was feeling a little bit better. We were gonna watch like funny YouTube videos together. Like obviously the times weren't all bad, just the bad often overshadowed the good. But anyway, I was feeling so shitty about that, and then this one friend from the friend group came in to try to emotionally console me, which was very unusual because this person had often been very emotionally removed from the group. He hung around with us a lot, but he was very emotionally removed, and honestly, I don't want this to sound insulting, but I always thought he was quite emotionally stunted in a way. So having him trying to come over and console me was very unusual. But obviously, like, it was very much appreciated. So then, like, after that, me and this guy we kind of started to emotionally understand each other better. And, like, we were texting about our issues. And just, he had a lot of shit going on in his life. Like, I don't want to, like, give out a lot of personal details, but it was extremely bad. And he had never told anyone about it, as far as I know. And I was the only person he felt safe and comfortable talking to. So, of course, being a good friend, I really, really wanted to help him. Like, just hearing about what he had gone through, like, thought processes, stuff he almost did, stuff he didn't do, it was horrible. And I just wanted to be a good friend and be there for him. So that's what I tried to do. We texted a lot. We talked a bit more in person. And I remember one night I was going to go to a hockey game with my friends and him. And I missed the hockey game, which is super unusual for me, to talk to this friend who was having issues. Because I saw him that evening, and he just did not look good at all. And when I could have been at the hockey game, we walked like several miles around in the freezing cold at night, just talking about everything. And I remember crying about the thought of losing a friend like him, and he told me that no one had ever, like, been as kind or like actually listened to him like I did. And I felt like I was actually making a difference. And I wanted to continue helping him. I wanted to be there for him because no one else was. He didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone else, which is understandable because in a friend group of guys and one girl, like, not to stereotype or generalize, but my guy friends were all a bit like just emotionally out of touch, I think. So anyway, so I continued to talk to his friend for a while. Meanwhile, just things got to the point with him, not friend, but him, where I couldn't take anymore, and one day we just kind of like sat down, and it just kind of came out like, this isn't working anymore, we're not happy, and I don't know how I got the confidence to do it. Maybe it was helping to get my shit out to this friend who I was also helping. It was kind of like a mutual talk about our problems. So that's what happened. We broke up. During the breakup, it was very civil, actually, which I'm very grateful for. And it was very civil. And my now ex, I can call him ex, literally told me that if he ever tells anyone about me in the future, it would be very positive. Obviously, things didn't work out, but he would see me as an overall positive influence in his life. And I was like, same, I'll talk about you like that, even though I didn't really believe that. But I wanted to avoid any confrontation or escalation. So we broke up. Immediately, we went to tell our friends. And I forgot a very important detail. The night before we broke up, this friend who I'd been helping emotionally admitted that he had romantic feelings for me, which I pretty much saw coming, but I didn't really know what to do with it. So, we broke up. We told our friends. They were fine with it. It seemed fine. The next day, I was hanging out with my friends. My ex wasn't there. And I was watching some really funny YouTube videos, and I was just feeling so much happier again. I felt more like myself. I didn't feel so incredibly shitty. I didn't feel like that I didn't want to exist. And I put out a little tweet on my Twitter account just saying something like, I haven't deleted it, like y'all could probably go find it somewhere, but it says something like, I just had the best laugh session I've had in a while and I really needed it. And the next day, my ex texts me basically saying, well, I know he literally called me an emotionless robot. And then he went on to say, oh, if you're already laughing and having so much fun, like, the day after we break up, then, like, obviously you didn't care about me at all. And obviously you're an emotionless robot. He literally called me an emotionless robot. And, of course, I was just responding. First of all, I was a supporter of us going no contact, but he didn't want to, and he kept trying to contact me. So, I said, like, no, that's obviously not true. Like, I did care about you a whole lot, but just, like, there's nothing wrong with me laughing at some YouTube videos, and just my ex was not having any of it. So that's that. I think it's fairly obvious that I was not feeling as upset as my ex started to regarding the breakup, and I think my ex was extremely bitter about that. So, this isn't even about me losing my friends yet. So, I continued to emotionally support my friend, and he had said he had feelings for me, and looking back on it, then I was stupid again. I didn't see a big problem with this, but I let myself also become too emotionally invested in him. Okay, so I had to change my camera's battery, so I don't remember exactly where I left off, so sorry about that, but let me just continue. I don't know exactly where I left off, but I'll try my best. So I let myself become very emotionally involved with this other guy who was from the friend group, though admittedly usually more detached than the others. So that was just ingredient 1 for Recipe for Disaster. Ingredient 2, Recipe for Disaster was, well, I don't know. I was just going to repeat the same thing, even though that probably should be a couple ingredients for disaster. So we didn't do anything about it for the rest of the semester because that would have just been too awful, if that makes any sense. But like, we were into each other. We did hang out a decent amount, and at the time I felt a lot happier. And we weren't official or anything, but anyone who like saw what was going on would probably be like, oh, you're already in a relationship again. Though, of course, my dumb ass did not see it that way. So yeah, at least we had a lot better emotional understanding of each other. So that was definitely a good thing. So my ex continued to be a little pissy about me being an emotionless robot, but for the most part, like, I just put up with it. So, winter break, I was back home. I didn't see my new boyfriend the entire winter break, but we Skyped a lot. And I guess ingredient 3, Recipe for Disaster, was this new guy decided he would tell old guy about being into me on the first day back to campus. And like, oh God, looking back now, I would have been like, no, never tell him. If it even got to that point, like looking back now, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to be in a relationship. But it happened. I can't change the past. So yeah, so the day before winter break ended, X texts me and he's like, I'm ready to move on. I'm sad that I lost like someone I consider to be my best friend, which I don't know how he saw me as his best friend because we were extremely different people. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I didn't really know how to respond. And then, so the next day, I got on a couple planes to come back to school, and I'm waiting for my last plane, and I get this, all of a sudden, this slew of angry, all caps text messages from my ex, who's saying, like, what the fuck is going on? Basically, my new boyfriend had told him. And now my ex was verbally attacking me through message about how shitty of a person I was. He just wanted me out of his life. I'm a mean, horrible person. That kind of stuff. And he called me an emotionless robot a few more times. He said some harsh curse words at me, and I was just kind of taking it out. I was trying to de-escalate it. I didn't really know what to do. Yeah. So then I got back to campus that night, and of course I didn't see my ex at all. Like, it was just gonna be weird. I don't want to focus like too much more on like all the relationships parts, because obviously I need to get to the part about my friends, which was the actual lowest point in my life. Boy, I'm like, this stuff is already kind of fuzzy because I've just tried to forget this absolute shit show that was the first 2 years of my college experience. Yeah, so not a lot actually happened after that. My ex left me alone most of the time. I think sometimes he would put up with me, like when we would see each other, just because we had the same friends. But then like a bit soon after that, I noticed that my friends kind of got just a little weird around me. So I was trying to figure that out. But let's see, when did it really like get bad? Okay, so I guess, oh, okay, I remember. Super Bowl 2018. So like the Super Bowl this year, but it was like last academic year for me, so like last semester. There was a party at my then boyfriend's fraternity, Super Bowl watch party. And I go there, obviously, because my boyfriend's in the fraternity. And then I quickly catch word that my ex had been sitting in church, crying, praying for hours, and I only heard that because a few others in my friend group were there, and they were wondering where he was. So I learned that he'd been like sitting in church for hours, and then another friend of ours was driving him around in his car trying to like de-escalate the situation, or like make my ex feel better. So eventually, I guess it wasn't even like the end of the first half. It was maybe like the end of the first quarter of the game. I get a text message. Well, I guess like it was kind of like a group message, and then my friends who were there directly confronted me about it. They were like, oh, he wants to come watch the game, but he feels uncomfortable having you here. So basically, please get out once he's here. That is the gist of what happened. They didn't even consider how I was feeling. They were like, oh, okay, he doesn't want her here, so basically, can you leave, please? So I was kind of taken aback, and I didn't know what to do. So I just, like, once he got there, it was about halftime, so I basically just left the fraternity house. I went to the union to get dinner, whatever, and then I went back to the fraternity house, and I knew there were kind of like two halves to it, so I went to the other half, where it was just full of guys I didn't know, and I just sat there by myself, feeling like shit, watching the game by myself. And, like, I like football, like, I'm glad I even, like, at least got to watch it. But I just, like, my friends didn't even stop to consider, like, me. They were just they were immediately like, okay, you need to leave because we're prioritizing this friend over you. And, like, obviously I kind of get that because he was very emotionally distraught. But I feel upset that none of the friends at least stopped to consider me. And, like, or none of them offered to come watch it with me. They just automatically all were like, oh, hey, he's here, great. Let's, like, watch the game with him, and we don't care what this person, me, was doing. So that's when I kind of noticed, like, things were getting a little weird with my friends. Real quick, I need to Google something so I can kind of get the timeline better. Okay, and then what was the day of the Super Bowl? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, a few days after the Super Bowl, so the Super Bowl was February 4th. I guess, like, a week and a half later, Black Panther, the movie, came out. And leading up to it, like, even after the whole Super Bowl fiasco, I texted our friends group chat, and I was like, hey, do you guys want to all make plans to go see it together? And they were like, sure, sounds like a great idea. And then they started kind of giving times when they could go. And I was like, great, sounds good. So then, like, for a couple days, I would ask them a little bit about it, and they were like, yeah, okay, sounds good. I think a couple of them might have, like, had a test, so they were like, okay, we should, like, coordinate a little bit later. I need to study, focus on this, whatever. And then a few days after it came out, like a few days after the weekend it came out, I text them again, and I'm like, hey, did y'all still want to see Black Panther together? Like, I haven't heard anything from it. I haven't heard anything about it from you guys for a while. And then I felt, how I remember it, I felt like I already knew what was coming. One of them just came out and texted the group and said, oh yeah, sorry, but we already saw it without you. We saw it with your ex. Sorry we didn't tell you, but, like, we kind of assumed there would have to be separate showings for both of y'all anyway. So obviously what they did was all go see it with him. And none of them even be like, no, I'll give my time to my other friend I thought they were my friends. But none of them, like, even considered me once again. So I learned that they saw Black Panther behind my back. So I was a little salty about it. And of course, I'm not saying that I'm, like, a perfect person in this situation. I'm not saying that at all. But yeah, they went and saw it without me, even though I was the one coordinating, wanting to see it all with them, and they agreed to go see it with me. So I was like, okay, well, I'd really appreciate it, like, if anyone wants to see it again, I'd really appreciate it if maybe, like, even just a couple of you guys who are supposed to be my friends come see it with me. So a couple of them agreed, and we coordinated a day and, like, carpool, whatever. I think maybe 4 of them out of, like, 9 people, 9 other friends, not counting me, came. So there's that. And, like, just on the way there, it felt very strange. Like, it felt like no one really wanted to talk to me. But I was like, okay, whatever. So we get to the movie, and everyone's just kind of like, blah, whatever. I mean, like, we're there, I'm gonna see the movie, that's great. At the end of the movie, like, before even the first after credits scene, because there's 2 of them, even before the first one played, my friends are like, my friends, at this point I'm using the term friends loosely because I thought they were still my friends, they said, like, oh, since we've seen the movie already, the after credit scenes aren't actually, like, too interesting. Okay, so I had to cut the camera again for reasons. I think I left off at, like, the Black Panther stuff. Yeah, so, The end credits. So basically, as soon as the credits start, my friends are like already acting like to get up and leave, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they say, oh, the after credit scenes like aren't even that good, like we can just tell you what happens, like can we go, like I have homework to do and like I have a test this week and just like I need to get back to campus because I mean, I guess that was their priority, which obviously academics takes priority, but the way they talked to me made it just completely seem like they did not want to be there. So that's like the immediate thought I got. And I immediately just started spiraling in like, okay, they're only here to pity me because they feel like they owe me. They are not here because they are my friends. So I was like, okay, whatever, fine, we can leave. And then getting out of the place, there was like a little pet store in the mall too. It's hard to explain. And I was like, do y'all want to go see some like cute puppies real quick? And they were like, I want to leave, blah, blah, blah. But they were like, whatever. So we go and look, and I guess it wasn't what they were expecting, because then they were like, oh, this is like lamer than I was expecting. I was expecting something else. And at that point, I was just literally like, this is the worst, like, this is horrible. I hate this. I feel like shit. These people are not here because they want to be here, because they want to interact with me, because they are my friends. They are not here for me. Once again, my camera's having issues, but whatever. They weren't there for me. So I know this sounds like super cliche, but I just, at that point, I just kind of like broke down. I literally ran away from the group and ran out towards the parking lot and towards the car I was riding in, because I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I know I probably looked so stupid, and they probably, I mean, I would like to think that like they weren't just all like shitty people, but I feel like they definitely made fun of me for being dramatic or like being like an emotional girl or something. I feel like that happened. I don't know. Because none of them really came after me. They were just like kind of concerned. They seemed concerned. I don't know how to describe it, but I felt so embarrassed, and I just felt like shit. Like I just got in the car, didn't interact with them, just went home and just like sat in my room. And that's when I really started to see that there were issues. Basically what I saw was they were devoting all of their time to my ex. I guess because he seemed to be more upset and like troubled over the entire thing. While I seemed to be like a relatively functioning human being, but this is really where I began to lost it, and like this is the start of the actual lowest point in my life. Just like after that day, I couldn't see them the same. Like I noticed they would just always immediately do stuff without me and do it with my ex instead. So there's that. So that happened a few times. I just want to get to the actual meat of this story. So at one point, I was fed up, so I sent everyone a text message, group message, whatever, saying, hey, I think it'd be really beneficial if we all have a serious adult conversation with each other, just because like I have concerns, etc., etc. And like it's good, like they all agreed, and so we all met up, except my ex, because as I soon found out, he was too scared to come. So we all met up, and I kind of like wrote out this document of what I wanted to say. Like I felt like they had been constantly ditching him for me, and at least like they all listened, like we all talked, like we were all honest with each other. And I mean, one of the things I remember is like they said that they were devoting more time to him because he seemed like he needed it more, and I had seemed relatively fine up until this point. So there's that. And then so this is where actually like I don't know. So my ex, who said he was too scared to come to this adult, mature conversation, he said, well, he was texting with one of my friends at the time who was texting him what we were talking about, if that makes any sense. And the friend who was doing the texting told me that my ex said he felt like he had been emotionally abused by me. And at that point, as a victim of like emotional manipulation, sexual coercion, whatever, arguably emotional abuse in high school, I didn't know what to do because I would never want to put that on anyone. This is like kind of hard for me to talk about because only a very few people outside of my close friends and the people who were involved know about it. So I was being accused of emotional abuse by my ex, and I was just honestly taken aback because I would never want to do that to someone because it was done to me. And I guess, like, I don't know if I'm going to get emotional in the rest of this video or not. Like, I feel like I might not because I'm just so done and I'm more angry than sad. But, yeah. So, I couldn't really believe it. I asked for, like, the reasoning why, like, what was the explanation, and my friend said that my ex didn't want to, like, talk about it right now. So I was like, okay, so I'm just supposed to, like, sit here and be like, oh, okay, I was abusive? So they didn't, like, no one really knew what to do with that. Like, we continued the conversation, which was actually nice to have. Like, I felt a little bit better after the conversation besides the whole abuse part. So I don't remember exactly what happened immediately after that. I do know, that I started to lose it quite a bit more because I totally felt like my world was falling apart. I was being accused of something I never ever wanted to do to anyone, and basically my only friends at school, it was just all falling apart. So I would say like maybe a few days up to a week, I don't know, so like within 2 weeks of that conversation that night, my ex said he wanted to talk to me about everything. And I just should have, at this point, like I still look back and I think I was so stupid. At this point, I should have just been like, okay, I'm cutting every single bit of this out of my life because I'm done with the bullshit. I don't want to deal with the drama or anything anymore. But I wanted to know what my ex thought I did. Yeah. So the friend who had been doing the texting, if that makes any sense, was kind of a mediator in like a new group chat between me and my ex, and he was like, okay, y'all need to set a time to talk, blah, blah, blah. And so I was really hesitant to do it, and that annoyed both of them, but eventually like I gave in to do it. And so then the friend who was doing the texting before messaged me then and was like, okay, if you're gonna do this, like, just let him explain himself, like, don't really argue with him, just, like, let him walk all over you, basically, just, like, let him get him out, let him get it out, don't argue, like, he's gonna think it's a personal attack, just, like, sit there and let him, like, tell you all this stuff you supposedly did. And I don't know what y'all would think about something like that, but that pissed me off because he was just automatically, to me, this friend was automatically believing whatever my ex had to say without even talking to me about it. He was just like, just let him attack you, basically. Like, I don't care. Just, like, let him do it. Make him feel better about himself. And this just made me so angry, and I don't know exactly why. I don't know how it would make any of you guys feel, but it made me angry. So, eventually the day came and I met with him. It was like 11 at night and we went until like 1:30 in the morning or some bullshit. And I literally wrote down a lot of what was said on a piece of paper, but I can't find it. I think it might be at home. I don't know. So I'll just get to the meat of that, which was his explanation for me being emotionally abusive only consisted of the following statements. Our personalities were very different. So basically our personalities clashed. And it wasn't your fault though. And therefore, I feel like I was emotionally abused. As far as I can remember, that was basically the only explanation he gave for me being emotionally abusive. And frankly, to me, that feels like bullshit, and I don't want to be trampled down by a bullshit statement like that. There were tons of things I could have argued with him about, but I ended up kind of letting him walk all over me just because after hearing that, I was completely just done with fucking everything. I was tired of feeling like shit. So, I mean, I brought up a couple of my issues / concerns to him. For example, I told him I frequently felt coerced into having sex with you, and that made me uncomfortable. And every time I brought up a concern like that, he would say, oh, well, I only, like, for example, like, really coerced you into having sex because, like, I only did these things because of something you originally did or didn't do. Like, he would not take any blame for any of the shit I ever felt in that relationship. He put all the blame on me. He thought that he did absolutely nothing wrong, that he did not hurt me. He thought it was all my fault. And to this day, as far as I know, he still does not take any blame. I guess I'll get to that more in a little bit, but he basically turned everything that I was uncomfortable about back to it being my fault. Like, especially, like, another example would be me feeling like I was asexual, like me identifying as asexual. I forget exactly what he said, but I know, like, he turned it back on me. Like, that's all he did. So just after that conversation, okay, well, I guess another thing I should mention about the conversation was, I was just like, okay, yeah, and, like, I wrote down the things, like, I gotta find that paper because it has some, like, crazy shit written on it. He was like, I don't know if you want to try to, like, ever be friends again, here's some things you gotta do. And I was like, oh, can't wait to hear this. So he told me, okay, so back then, that year, last semester, whatever, my dorm room was on the first floor, the ground floor, and had a window facing out into, like, the main courtyard where, like, if you're leaving your building, you're walking through this courtyard. So, basically, anytime he would walk out of his dorm or our friends' dorms who were also, like, really close, if my blinds were open, he could see into my room, and he told me, okay, if you ever want me to, like you, like, barely at all again, then I want you to keep your blinds closed, like, all the time, because if I walk by and look in, that'll make me feel like crap. And I was like, internally, I was like, what the fuck? But then externally, I was like, oh, okay. And then he gave me some other bullshit stuff, which for some reason I attempted to do for a while. So that was basically the end of that conversation with my ex. Yeah. So, like, for example, for for like a couple weeks maybe, I kept my blinds closed more than usual. But then it just got to the point where I was like, fuck it, I really don't care. And so the last interaction I've ever had with my ex was, there's also like a window to like one of the lounge on the to a lounge on the ground floor where I frequently saw him playing with my friends, who I supposedly still had. I'll get to that too. They were really into Fortnite then. So if I would walk by and like the blinds of the lounge were open and they were in there, I would see that they were playing Fortnite. So I think like we started texting about something for some reason. I don't really know why. Like, it should have just gone no contact really at this point. I don't know what the fuck I was doing, but we were texting about something. Like barely. Like it was super like rocky. And then like I had seen them playing Fortnite, so I was going to end the conversation with literally a friendly. I did not mean this like in a passive aggressive way or anything like that. I was trying to be super friendly and like nice to him for some reason. I was like, okay, well, hope you win Fortnite, hope you have a good Fortnite game, whatever. It was phrased in a way where, like, in hindsight, I could see it being taken as rude, but I did not mean that at all. And then immediately he just blew up at me again and was like, what the fuck, you were just a mean, awful, disgusting person. Like, fuck off. And I tried to say, like, I meant that friendly, and you're, like, attacking me for it. And he was just like, whatever, you're a bitch, bye. So that's basically the last interaction I ever had with him. So there's that, and then just really leading up to where I lost my friends for good was, soon after that, I just, like, my friends, nothing was getting better. They did not want to give any time to me, and I felt like they were completely believing the abuse story, and none of them even tried to get my explanation of things. They just went along with what this guy was saying. They didn't even try to contact me or console me about it. They just didn't care, and I thought they were my friends that I was going to have for years and years and years because I had been with them since freshman year, and I really cared about them. And they just were not being friends at all. Yeah. So I remember I wasn't gonna like do this shit in person. I remember I had another like Word document thing, and I sent it to the group chat. It was basically saying, I feel like you guys do not care about me as an actual friend. I feel like I am just some annoying person you have to put up with based on how you've been treating me. And I would also like to tell you that you guys are just going along believing this guy who's accusing me of abuse without even asking for my perspective, my story, anything like that. You guys are just blatantly believing him. And I'm done. I do not need this in my life. Please do not contact me. That was basically the Word document, and I sent it to the group chat and left immediately afterwards, and that was like how I lost my friends. And for weeks after, I would see them hanging out with my ex, laughing and having fun and doing all the stuff that we used to do together. They just did it with him, and they didn't even care. They just continued like their lives were normal. And anytime I saw them around on campus doing that stuff, I felt like shit for weeks because I had no more friends. I was like completely and utterly alone. And like that is what I consider to be the lowest point in my life. Because they didn't even, I know I told them not to contact me, but just before that, none of them even cared to know my side of the story, and they just ditched me completely. So, and then there were several weeks of school left, and I had to go around campus constantly seeing my ex-friends hang out with my ex. Yeah, so there's that. And then, just to make a long story short, I broke up with the other guy this past summer. It was like another long distance thing, and I couldn't do it anymore. There was too much just reminding me of what had happened, just all of that bullshit, and just I was kind of getting unhappy anyway. So I broke up with him this past summer, but sometimes I can't get it out of my head because I feel so angry and sad sometimes, and how I'm reacting now is like barely anything compared to what I was back then. And I don't know if this sounds completely and utterly just like stupid, but whenever I see any of them on campus anymore, I flash back to all the bullshit that happened the last 2 years, and I just feel like shit again, and I can't get it out of my head. And so there were a couple people in the friend group who were more removed from the entire situation. Like, they were part of the friend group, but not as close, or not as directly involved. Like, for example, one was gone from school for a semester, for half a semester for something. One person like really barely hung out with us, but was at the adult serious talk, that kind of stuff like that. There were a couple of those guys, and like, I've been in contact with a couple of them, but I still see them hanging out with my ex sometimes, and I would like to consider them my friends, just to say that I didn't lose everybody, I didn't lose everything that I really had, but if I see them hanging out with my ex and just laughing and having a jolly old good time, I start to lose it again, and my chest gets really tight and it's hard to breathe, and I just flash back to everything that happened. For example, I saw someone I'm still supposedly kind of friendly with eating dinner with him and laughing and having a jolly good time the same day as I had eaten lunch with this friend. And I don't know what it was, but just something about that. I had to get away. I don't know why I felt like that. I had to get away from him. I had to get away from the other him. I had to get away from them, and I just felt so uncomfortable with people I thought might still be my friends, being friends with someone who, I'll get into this, I now consider to have emotionally abused me, because he manipulated me into sex again. He blamed me for all of the relationship's problems. He would not take any blame on himself. And like, he just completely dismissed my sexuality. He made my life hell for several months, and like months after we were even together. And just seeing someone I want to be friends with him, it makes me incredibly uncomfortable. And I don't know how I can still be friends with that person. Anyway, so I believe that my ex, who accused me of emotional abuse, actually emotionally abused me and was just constantly playing a victim card. I did hours of research, having horrible anxiety. I did hours of research just searching for anything I could have done in our relationship that would have been considered emotionally abusive, and I couldn't think of anything. I went through lists of symptoms of emotional abuse, and I did none of those things. And he was accusing me of emotionally abusing him because our personalities were different. I feel like I can't begin to fathom that. And I kind of lost track of where it was going, and then just shit happens today, which is why I'm making this video today. I was at a hockey game, and of course this had to happen to me because the world loves me. One of my ex-friends, the guy who was doing the texting, I guess that's just how I refer to him, he randomly today during the hockey game decided to turn on his phone light, this thing. He decided to turn that on, which obviously caught my attention because there was this bright thing in the crowd literally straight across from me, and I saw it was him. And my abusive, shitty ex, was sitting next to him. And then just for the entire rest of the game today, I couldn't forget that they were right across from me. And then I saw that two of my other ex-friends, one of them was the person who I ate lunch with, and then he ate dinner with my ex, that kind of thing. He was there. They went and sat with them, and sometimes I couldn't look away. And I just saw that they were having just a grand old time together, and I couldn't help but feel angry. I feel angry that my ex got away with all the friends, got away with all the bullshit he put me through, and got away with putting all the blame on me. And someone else told me that when one of my ex-friends told my ex that they wanted to hear my side of the story, my ex said, "What other side of the story? You heard the story," referring to his version of events. That is the kind of shitty person I believe my ex is. And he got away with all of it, and I can't help but feel extremely angry because of this. I get angry when I think of the entire situation. And I just feel sad, and I feel tired. And I guess that's I felt like I might cry while explaining all of this, but I feel like I'm just too angry and tired to do that. I couldn't forget about them at the hockey game. And that's why I'm making this video tonight. And I don't know, if y'all think this makes me a shitty person, then y'all can think that. But I hope my ex gets karma. I don't know how you say it, but he deserves bad karma, I feel like, because of what he did to me. And he just gets away with it, and he has all the friends. And I'm just completely angry, and I feel like he deserves to feel just even a little bit of what I actually felt. That's just my personal take on it. I forget exactly what else. I mean, I guess I'll get to the happy parts in a minute, I guess, but yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what else there's to say. I guess it does feel a little therapeutic to get this out. I don't even know no one's gonna fucking watch this, but so that's what happened to me. And I guess this might also sound stupid, but it's very real to me. For some reason, I get a horrible feeling that my ex wants to do something bad to me. And that's partially because when he found out I was dating the other guy, who I'm now broken up with, he told me that if I upset that guy, then he would basically make my life hell. And while the breakup, I don't think, did that to the other guy, I feel like I'm paranoid that my ex might do something to me. And, like, walking home from the hockey game, it was dark, obviously, and there were, like, some people around, but I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder. And I don't know why, and I feel stupid for doing that, but I feel paranoid that he's going to do something to me. I mean, it's totally realistic if he, like, never wants to interact with me again, even in that context, but I can't shake this feeling. So that's basically all the bad stuff. So now, right now, I'm basically the happiest I've ever been in my life. After breaking up with that guy over long distance, I was just like, okay, I need to figure, like, my shit out. I just need to, like, keep to myself for a little bit and, like, just deal, that kind of stuff. So over the summer, like, I met someone else, and he makes me incredibly happy. Like, he is part of the reason I'm the happiest I've ever been right now, but I think also part of it is, I mean, obviously we're long distance right now because I met him over the summer and he lives back in Texas, but long distance right now doesn't suck so much because I'm happy, like, we love each other, and I guess with regards to the whole asexual thing, like, obviously I'm not going to go into no details, but I think I'm still on the asexuality spectrum, but I'll just say, like, I'm a whole lot more open, accepting, and, like, attracted to this guy, and he makes me incredibly happy. And just, I think also, this might be weird to say, but I think also the long distance part is helping me be happy a little bit because, like, obviously I miss him so much. And I can't wait to see him on Thanksgiving break and Christmas break and whatever. But it's allowing me to also be my own person right now while also having such a positive influence in my life. And I'm getting better grades at school now that all that bullshit's over. I'm finally living by myself, which really fucking helps. And just everything is so much better, and I feel so happy now. And just pretty much the only negative thing in my life is just me thinking about all the bullshit that happened before. But even though it was the hardest thing in my life to ever do, cutting out the people who I thought were my friends was one of the best decisions I ever made. Because now, if I hadn't, then I would still be involved in all that bullshit. And now I'm not. I'm free, and it still hurts me because all this bullshit happened to me. And I am angry for what my friends and my ex did. And yes, I feel like I am deserving of an apology because I personally feel like I am in the right. No one even bothered to, like, listen to my story. Like, my ex said all that crappy stuff. He, like, just manipulated my friends by playing the victim card into just following him, just whatever. I feel like I am personally owed an apology by the people who were involved. And I don't know if that makes me a shitty person, but that's personally how I feel. But, like, I'm living, and I'm super happy, and just, obviously I'm never gonna forget what happened the last 2 years, but now, because I got out of all that stuff, I am now the happiest I've ever been, like, long-term overall in my life, I think. So there's that. I feel so much better, so much more free right now, and I don't have to deal with all of that. So, I don't even know if anyone's still watching this at this point, but it's out there obviously now if you are seeing this. This is my truth. This is what happened to me. And I think I feel a lot better. I don't have any regrets making this video. People can think whatever they want to think of me, but you weren't involved unless you're watching this video and you were for some reason. That is my truth. That is what I experienced, and I'm glad all of that bullshit's over. So, if you made it to the end, thanks, I guess? I don't know. But yeah, this is the end. I'm much happier. I'm not the happiest person ever, and there's still things that haunt me, like I feel like my ex is gonna do something, but it is what it is, and I'm a happy person now, even though I might not look like it, but that's about it. So, how y'all doing? No, I'm kidding, but this was super long, longer than I expected, but I'm done with it now, so. I don't know, that's the end. I'm gonna turn off the camera now. Bye.